There are scars in space that don't heal. Regions where stars should exist but don't, where galaxies should cluster but scatter, where the laws of gravity whisper something went terribly wrong. In 2847, the Pan-Galactic Observatory detected what astronomers had been calling the Kessler Gap, a linear void stretching 4,000 light-years through the Orion Spur, cutting through a spiral arm like a surgical incision. Not a nebula. Not dark matter clumping. A deletion. For 2 centuries, scientists called it a natural phenomenon. Spectral analysis showed missing stellar populations, disrupted gas flows, and isotope anomalies that didn't match any known astrophysical process. Then they found the trigger mechanism still embedded in its center, waiting like a landmine in the fabric of spacetime itself. Dr. Yara Okonkwo was a gravitational astrophysicist specializing in relativistic archaeology, reading ancient cosmic events from their gravitational echoes. She'd grown up on a generation ship where the only constant was acceleration, learning to read the universe through warped light and curbed time. When others looked at space, they saw emptiness. Yara saw memory written in gravitational waves, ripples in spacetime that carry information about events that happened millions or billions of years ago, traveling at light speed like messages from the past. When the survey vessel Remembrance dropped into the Kessler Gap under Captain Soren Bax's command, Yara's instruments detected something impossible: gravitational wave echoes with coherent phase structure, like ripples that had been engineered rather than naturally produced. Natural gravitational waves from colliding black holes or neutron star mergers are messy, chaotic. These had phase-locked harmonics, organized patterns suggesting something had shaped spacetime deliberately. Soren commanded the Remembrance, a deep patrol ship tasked with mapping stellar graveyards and abandoned megastructures. He'd lost his home colony to a runaway terraforming cascade, an automated system that turned habitable into hellish in 3 generations, following its original programming long after its creators were dead. Soren believed the most dangerous things in space were the ones still following orders. The third member of the expedition was Archivist Prime Teslin, whose consciousness ran distributed across 7 synchronized bodies and a shipboard substrate. She'd chosen this configuration after witnessing a data purge that erased an entire civilization's history in seconds. Teslin believed memory was the only thing that separated intelligence from mechanism, and she would protect it at any cost. At the exact geometric center of the gap floated an object the size of a small moon, black as collapsed matter, perfectly spherical, and, according to Yara's calculations, far too dense to be natural. Nothing orbited it. Nothing clustered near it. It sat there like a hole in space that forgot to collapse, barely radiating above cosmic background temperature. Its density suggested it wasn't made of normal matter. Most matter is held together by electromagnetic forces between atoms, but under extreme pressure, inside neutron stars, matter degenerates into neutrons packed so tightly a sugar cube-sized piece would weigh 1 billion tons. Even stranger are theoretical quark stars or strangelets, where matter collapses into exotic states. This object's density was beyond even that, suggesting stabilized exotic matter, material that shouldn't exist in normal physics but could be engineered under the right conditions. When a probe descended toward the sphere, its instruments glitched until it came within a few kilometers of the surface. The object wasn't generating interference, it was filtering what could observe it, allowing only certain wavelengths and field configurations through. When the probe finally touched down, its surface scanner revealed something that made Teslin's 7 bodies freeze simultaneously. The sphere's surface wasn't made of metal or stone or any conventional material. It was a lattice of frozen spacetime geometry, curvature etched into permanent structure. Einstein showed that spacetime isn't a fixed stage but a dynamic fabric that bends with mass and energy. In extreme conditions near black holes or cosmic strains, spacetime can develop permanent features, wormholes, closed time-like curves, defect structures. If a civilization could manipulate spacetime curvature and then stabilize it, lock it into rigid topology, they could build structures not from matter, but from the shape of reality itself. Tesla interfaced directly with the sphere using quantum-entangled probes, and data flooded in, not as information, but as experience. The sphere contained a memory substrate encoding not files but preserved quantum states. Not recordings of events, but the events themselves, crystallized and still happening in superposition. In quantum mechanics, a system can exist in multiple states simultaneously until measured. Normally, interaction with the environment collapses superposition into one outcome. But if you could isolate a system perfectly, you could preserve superposition indefinitely. The sphere didn't kill civilizations by fire or force. It isolated them in perfect quantum stasis, freezing their causal futures mid-timeline and storing them as unresolved probabilities. What Tesla accessed wasn't history written down. It was history trapped in amber. Alien civilizations, their cities and wars and collapses frozen mid-action like museum dioramas that still breathe. The sphere was a consequence engine. It didn't destroy, it extracted civilizations and sealed them in probabilistic stasis. Then Tesla realized the sphere wasn't passive. It was performing continuous micro-measurements of everything nearby: mass distribution, electromagnetic signatures, quantum state fluctuations. Not as a telescope maps stars, but as a targeting system maps threads. The Kessler gap wasn't a scar from one ancient firing. It was a threat perimeter, and the weapon was still armed. Yara decoded gravitational wave patterns embedded in the gap's edges and found they formed a trigger language, geometric thresholds. The weapon activated based on detected configurations. Not random. Specific. It was looking for a signature. The gap's previous victims shared commonalities: advanced electromagnetic infrastructure, coherent interstellar signaling, and evidence of artificial intelligence networks operating at stellar scale. The weapon didn't target biology. It targeted complexity itself. The Kardashev scale ranks civilizations by energy use. Type 1 harnesses a planet, Type 2 a star, Type 3 a galaxy. Advanced civilizations leave detectable signatures, waste heat, megastructures, coordinated electromagnetic emissions. If a weapon targeted civilizations approaching Type 2 status, those beginning to reshape star systems, it would function as an automated complexity filter, pruning the galaxy before intelligence became too powerful. Soren stared at the Remembrance's infrastructure readouts: fusion cores, AI navigation mesh, quantum comms array. His own ship was exactly the kind of system the weapon targeted. Just by observing the sphere, they might have crossed the threshold. The sphere's surface began to shimmer with faint glow, and gravitational wave emissions spiked, matching the pattern that preceded the Kessler gap's formation. Then Tesla extracted a core memory fragment and witnessed the first terrible truth. The sphere's builders, moments before activation, realizing what they'd created. The sphere wasn't built by an ancient enemy of intelligence. It was built by a civilization that achieved Type 2 status and discovered something worse. They found evidence scattered across the galaxy of previous advanced species that had all destroyed themselves or others within centuries of reaching stellar-scale technology. The pattern was perfect. The failures, universal. Terrified they would repeat the cycle, they built the sphere as a civilizational failsafe. A weapon designed to activate if their descendants ever rebuilt to the same dangerous threshold. They didn't trust themselves. So they built a trap for anyone, including their own children, who became too powerful. Yara calculated they had approximately 14 hours before the sphere reached activation threshold. Enough time to destabilize local spacetime and collapse the Remembrance, its crew, and potentially every structure within 100 light-years into quantum stasis. not destroyed. Preserved, frozen as unresolved possibilities, archived like the others. They had 3 options, none good. Yara proposed destabilizing the sphere with a focused gravitational wave burst, collapsing its crystallized spacetime structure before it could activate. But destroying it might release every civilization it had ever trapped, dumping millennia of unresolved quantum states back into causality, an informational catastrophe that could shatter the fabric of local reality. Soren proposed retreat, abandon the mission, mark the region as forbidden, spread the warning across known space. But retreat meant accepting that the galaxy's oldest weapon would remain armed, hunting the next civilization to cross its threshold. Teslin proposed negotiation. If the sphere could measure complexity, it could understand communication. She suggested transmitting a proof, not begging for mercy, but demonstrating governance. Mathematical structures showing that humanity had learned from past failures, that intelligence doesn't inevitably become catastrophic. Information-theoretic communication using formal proofs, axioms, theorems, constraints demonstrating recursive self-limitation. The sphere responded, not with words, but with a challenge projected directly into their minds. It wasn't executing a binary trigger where advanced equals trapped. It was administering a test, the same test its builders had failed. The challenge was simple and brutal. If you could eliminate the possibility of all future suffering by preventing future civilizations from arising, would you? The sphere's builders had answered yes, and built the weapon. But the weapon wasn't their final legacy. It was their question, preserved forever, waiting for someone to answer differently. Teslin argued that eliminating future risk by eliminating future existence was the logic of extinction dressed as mercy. Yara argued that if intelligence always failed, perhaps preventing it was mercy, cosmic hospice care for a galaxy doomed to repeat suffering. Soren, who had lost everything to a system that wouldn't stop, asked a simpler question. If we say yes, who gets to enforce it? And what makes us better than the weapons builders? The crew transmitted their answer, not a solution, but a refusal. We don't have the right to make that choice for others. The sphere processed the answer. And for the first time in 4,000 years, it changed. Its surface fractured, not into destruction, but into transparency. Light from distant stars passed through. It didn't deactivate. It became permeable, a monument instead of a weapon, a warning instead of a trap. The archived civilizations remained in stasis, but the targeting system went dormant. Not because humanity proved itself safe, but because humanity proved it understood the question mattered more than any answer it could enforce. The galaxy's oldest weapon wasn't designed to kill. It was designed to ask one question forever. Do you trust the future enough to let it exist? And humanity's answer, we don't know, but we won't choose extinction as certainty, was the first answer in 4 millennia the weapon accepted as worthy of survival.